everybody. Welcome back to Bold Strokes Books Bookathon. I have with me Jessica L. Webb and a newbie author to Bold Strokes Books. Don't think you guys know her yet. This is Radclyffe. They are here to do a chat on writing medical emergencies. I'm sure you already know this, but two quick things about Zoom. If you click gallery view at the top right-hand corner of your screen, that will show you the panelists the best. And there's a Q&A box at the bottom middle of your screen. That's where you put your questions for the panelists. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thanks, Sandy. Hi, everybody. I'm Rad. In case you don't know me, I tend to write romances all the time, contemporary, paranormal, intrigue, and I'm here tonight with Jessica Webb from, you're still in Canada, right?
I am.
From where it's a little bit colder than it is here right now. We're going to be reading for you, taking some questions, probably not singing and dancing like they might have done in the last half hour if you were there for Alley Valley and Carson Tate, but we'll try to be really entertaining. I'm going to hand it over to Jessica. Jessica has written 6 books, right? With Bold Strokes Books. And she's going to be reading tonight from the second in the Kate and Andy series, Dr. Kate Morrison and Sergeant Andy Wiles. And this one is Pandemic, right?
Pathogen, yeah.
Pathogen, sorry. I got the P part right. Actually, I got the first 2 letters right.
Yeah.
Pathogen. So she's going to be reading from that first. Before you do, let me ask you this. Why this book? What was there about this topic that got you to put it together and want to write it?
What's interesting is the location actually came to me first. So Pathogen takes place in a very small, exclusive, very wealthy town in British Columbia called Hidden Valley, which doesn't really exist except for in my mind. And I really wanted that contrast of this very exclusive, very wealthy town, the things that they really valued and the things that would really bother them, which would include not being able to control things. I wanted to put Kate and Andy in that situation and have them try to work together in a difficult situation. So I'm not exactly sure actually how that pathogen outbreak piece came into it, but it really fit that idea of what is something that you cannot control. I think as all of us are feeling right now, that is something that we absolutely have no control over, is a viral outbreak. So sticking Kate and Andy, who are already dealing with some tension, into that place and dealing with a viral outbreak really ramped up a lot of that tension. Okay.
And it certainly is timely, and now I can get an excuse for why I called it Pandemic.
Yes.
That's about all I've been reading for the last month and a half.
Exactly.
Okay, Jessica, Pathogen.
Pathogen. Hi, everyone in Zoom land. It's really nice to see you. I write mystery and thriller series with romance for Bold Strokes Books. I'm on book number 6. I'm just working on edits for my newest release, which is called Stormlines. It will be out in July. You can take a look at the Bold Strokes Books website and pre-order it from there if you like. I will be reading a little bit from Pathogen, which is book 2. So in the passage I'm going to read, Kate and Andy are working together in Hidden Valley, trying to figure out what's going on, where this viral outbreak happened. They've been there for about a week doing some investigating, and the public is just starting to panic, and they're walking into this very small town hospital ER. The ER was already jammed. The tense and frazzled chief of staff, Dr. Doyle, buzzed ineffectively in larger and larger circles around the small space, getting in the way of the 3 doctors shouting orders at overburdened nurses. Shit, said Kate quietly, as she and Andy stood back and surveyed the chaos. Parents and nannies wrangled toddlers and hyperactive kids. Men and women in business suits yelled at each other and their cell phones, and the triage nurse looked like she was going to break down and cry at any moment. I'm going to find Constable Ferris, Andy said. Chicken, Kate mumbled, already making a plan to apply order to this familiar chaos. Andy grinned and touched Kate lightly, secretly on her back. Even distracted, Kate shivered, still not immune to Andy's touch. Go work your magic, Dr. Morrison. Call me if you need backup. Don't think I won't take you up on that, Kate said, but she was already heading into the very center of the storm. She descended on Dr. Doyle first, giving her 3 jobs. Call in extra staff to the ER, call local family practice offices at Whistler Health and tell them to expect overflow. Meet with the PR team to come up with a pamphlet to release to the public by this afternoon. As Dr. Doyle left with her list of jobs clenched in her manicured hand, Kate moved into action. She met with each doctor and nurse, making it clear anyone with flu symptoms combined with difficulty breathing should be flagged. She then pulled 2 nurses off the floor and out into triage, taking the already overloaded triage nurse with her. She passed them each a block of charts, instructing them to only input the most basic personal information and to prioritize patients based on a new coding system. Patients with a C for critical would get seen right away. Patients with FS on their charts would have a minimum of a 3-hour wait to be seen. And the code AB would only be used for patients who exhibited flu-like symptoms. I don't understand. What does AB stand for? Asked one of the nurses, writing the new codes on her hand. Nothing, Kate told her. We are not mentioning the word virus out there. People are already panicked enough. If asked, you tell people they are to treat symptoms as they would the flu and to come in if they are experiencing difficulty breathing. She looked around at the 3 nurses. Are we good? Kate and the 3 nurses walked back into the waiting room, started talking to patients, filling in charts, giving the most of them the news it was going to be a long wait. Kate felt a shift of tension in the air before long, from generalized and dispersed to angry and focused on Kate and the nurses. As Kate wrote FS on the top of a chart and got the next one ready, she pulled out her phone and texted Andy that she needed her in the ER. Kate moved to the next patient, a boy about 9, coughing and wiping his nose in the back of his sleeve, never looking up from his smartphone, fingers bashing at the screen. A dark-haired woman in worn shoes and a sweater smiled tentatively at Kate. His mother is worried, she said, with a heavy accent Kate couldn't place. She wants him to be seen right away. His doctor is away. She then fished in her purse, pulled out a cell phone. I am to call when there's a doctor here. Kate smiled back at the woman. Let's check him out first, okay? What's your name? Trenton Clifton III, the boy said, still not looking up. Kate rolled her eyes internally. Tell me about being sick, Trenton Clifton III. I've been home from school for 3 days, and when I cough, it's gross, and when I sneeze, it's gross. Have you been particularly tired? Nope. Kate turned to the woman. Has he been sleeping a lot or hard to wake? The woman shook her head. Has he complained about chest pain or trouble breathing? Another shake of her head. Kate pulled the stethoscope from around her neck and asked the boy to lean forward. She had to close her eyes and really concentrate away from the noise of the waiting room. Still, she heard nothing. I think he's just got a cold, she told the woman. If you or Mom wanted him to see a doctor, it's going to be at least 3 hours. The woman held out her phone looking worried. You tell Mom this, please. Kate sighed, looked over to see Andy and Constable Ferris coming in through the double doors. She waved them over. Fine, call her. She didn't really have time for this. As the woman dialed, Kate quickly explained what was happening to Andy and Ferris. She'd told Ferris to be friendly and calm, repeat only the information that the hospital had released yesterday. She told Andy just to walk around. Kate figured her imposing, uniformed presence would be enough to subdue the masses. The call with the mother was brief and bitter. Apparently, Mrs. Clifton was sure her kid could be seen because his father was on the hospital board. Kate made it clear her son was not sick enough to jump the line, and only critical patients were being sent through right now. That scene replayed itself in varying forms over the following several hours. People cajoled, attempted to influence, and subtly threatened when they were not seen right away. Kate gave everyone the exact same information, not even decreasing the projected wait time as people left. By the end of 4 hours, Kate found only 2 people who qualified for the suspected virus. Neither of them had any fluid in their lungs, nor did they have any pulmonary risk factors. As Kate sorted through the pile of triage charts, she found about the same number. She surveyed the ER. It was still packed. People still paced restlessly, shot Kate angry glances, but at least it was calmer. At least there was some semblance of order. Kate grabbed her phone and dialed the local RCMP office. The office coordinator, Judy, answered, and Kate outlined what she needed. Coffee, donuts, eclairs, cookies, pastries, basically anything overloaded with sugar and fat. She wanted a pile of it delivered to the ER as soon as possible. Because Kate was impressed. Given no warning and very little direction, this tiny ER had managed to control a panicked community dealing with a viral outbreak.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Jessica, one of the comments over in the chat box was, "This is very current," and I just I reread this over the weekend, and I was incredibly amazed at how it literally was snatched from the headlines. It's a great book.
Thank you.
I'm going to save some of the questions and do my reading, and then we'll take the rest of the questions.
Sounds good.
And that's just book 2, and there's another one with Andy and Kate, just in case those of you were asking. And I think somebody was asking about when is the next one, so you can be thinking about that one too. I'm going to move a little bit out of the very intimate personal sphere, which Jessica just read, and move a little bit broader. I'm going to be reading from Cost of Honor, which was my most recent in the Honor series, which just came out in November. And I'm going to kind of be looking at the threat to the health of the greater good in a way, which is kind of the theme for that series. I'm particularly interested in how social ideology and domestic warfare and domestic terrorism really impact all of us. So I'm going to be reading a short scene, 2 short scenes from Cost of Honor, one with some characters you may remember, and one with the villain, because I think in books like this, the villain plays a really central role in terms of really making the danger more intimate, and that's what I was trying to do. So this is from Cost of Honor. I have it here on my iPad, and I also have it printed out because, belt and suspenders. The Marriott Hotel, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 7:05 a.m. Morning. Blair slipped into the seat between her father and Lucinda at a table for 6 in a corner of the private dining room and kissed her father's cheek. The adjacent tables were empty, in a ring 4 tables deep, a subtle barrier providing as much privacy as they ever managed in public, which was not much, but at least their conversation would be private. The room was sequestered from any kind of civilian traffic before, during, and immediately after the president's presence. The Secret Service agents stationed at each door checked the room at frequent intervals throughout the day and night, whether the room was in use or not, scanning for listening devices, cameras, and explosives. "Hi, honey," her father said. "Cam coming down?" "No, she left at daybreak, I think," Blair said. "It might have been midnight. She just texted me to say she was held up in a meeting." Andrew tilted his chin toward the far door. "Looks like she made it after all." "Oh?" Blair looked over her shoulder, pleased, but surprised. Maybe Cam just wanted to grab breakfast, but she didn't think so. Cam was not a spontaneous person. She never revealed anything in her facial expression, and she didn't now. Blair could usually read her body language, but all she sensed was intensity and purpose, and that was just Cam. "I'm sorry to interrupt breakfast, Mr. President." Cam pulled out a chair at the table and sat down, "but I wanted to brief you personally." She fell silent as the White House servers brought breakfast on a rolling cart, served the plates, and inquired if she wanted anything. "No thanks," Cam said, and the servers withdrew, leaving them in their circle of silence again. "All right," Andrew said, calmly slicing into his avocado and eggs on toast. "Let's hear it." Cam said, "I just received another report from the task force in Philadelphia. They've been investigating some soft findings, pointing to an active alt-right group in the area." Lucinda put in, "That's pretty common in most major cities, and unfortunately, more and more college campuses everywhere too." "Absolutely," Cam said, "but this one appears to be escalating. The task force only picked it up because they've got a couple of extremely sharp cyber investigators with some algorithmic programs that I would very much like to get a look at." Claire laughed. "You mean unregistered programs?" "Something of their own development, yes," Cam said diplomatically. "What's the bottom line here?" Andrew said. "There are too many threads, all leading to the same place for us to ignore," Cam said, "and that's to Philadelphia." No one needed to point out that the president was due to arrive in Philadelphia in 2 weeks. The Trump Taj Mahal Casino, Atlantic City, New Jersey, game day minus 14 days, 1:10 a.m. Matthew fed dollar tokens into the slot machine and pulled the arm, disinterestedly watching the symbols rotate on the 3 cylinders. Cherries, lemons, and a freaking banana. Only an idiot plays these stupid machines. Everyone knew the odds favored the house. He fed in another coin. 3 cherries lined up and tokens vomited out the bottom. A few tumbled free of the tray and bounced on his loafers, spinning off into the grimy, gray carpeted floor. He scooped the coins out of the tray into the plastic bucket he'd picked up when he'd traded real American money for the fake tokens at the little window with the bars. An Arab girl sat behind the bars taking money and passing back useless colored chips and silver tokens. That at least looked right, her behind bars, probably a jihadist. All around him, foreigners brandished wealth they'd gotten by taking advantage of American generosity. American stupidity, foreign aid, what a joke. The foreigners were doing just fine, while American working men couldn't find jobs and lived in rundown shacks, while offshore workers stole their paychecks and the people in power looked the other way. Not for much longer. Hey, buddy, hey, man, you're losing your money, exclaimed a bearded white guy with a beer gut and a faded blue work shirt and baggy black pants, pointing to the litter of coins. Matthew almost told him to take it, but he wasn't supposed to be standing out. Yeah, thanks, man, I missed that. Hurriedly, he raked up the loose fake coins and dumped them in his plastic bucket with this stupid palm tree on the side. He fed another coin into the slot and yanked the arm. Excuse me, a redhead in a silver-spangled top and skin-tight black capri pants murmured, moving in close. I think you dropped your room key by the elevator. She held out a key card. 1609, right? Yeah, thanks. Matthew took the card printed with an image of the sparkling shoreline and boardwalk. Another fake. The shoreline was a garbage dump. No problem. She turned away and a second later disappeared into the throng. Matthew slid off the stool, swinging his little plastic bucket, and headed for the elevators. He hadn't booked a room. 1609 was empty when he let himself in, except for a small blue and green nylon cold bag, the kind you got from LL Bean to pack lunch or beer for an afternoon pickup game, sitting in the center of a round fake wood table by the windows. His breath hitched, and he stared at it for a long moment. He was pretty sure he knew what was in it, but he never quite believed he'd be looking at it. All this waiting, years it seems, though it had been less than 8 months since he'd first been contacted by a like-minded guy who'd seen his YouTube posts on what would really make America great again. He unzipped the bag. The canisters looked harmless enough. Silver tubes an inch or so in diameter, 8 inches long, with a valve at one flattened end. Ordinary tear gas canisters used by riot police the world over. Only the gas inside these would do a lot more than irritate the eyes and burn the lungs. It would paralyze the nervous system, cause seizures and cardiac arrhythmias, and kill you in minutes, sometimes less. Matthew zipped up the bag and tucked it under his arm, took the elevator back down to the lobby, and dropped his room key in the slot reserved for express checkouts. He left his plastic bucket of fake coins on an empty stool in the casino. So, okay. Shall we take some questions? Jessica?
Yeah, there's some good questions. Actually, if I can amalgamate a couple of the questions for you, Rad. So looking at all the ideas that you have, because you cover a lot of topics in a lot of your books. So I know you said you write mainly mystery, but cover a lot of topics. So do you ever find how to sort through all of your ideas? Do you ever find you have too many, that you have trouble focusing them? Like how do you make sure you've got them all captured, or do you ever get overwhelmed by them?
I try not to think too far ahead. I do not think about the next book unless I'm forced to, which is usually when Sandy or somebody in production says you have to write a blurb. We have to have a description for your next book. And I don't have a character name or a title or really even know what I'm going to write about. I just have a general idea and I make something up. And then 3 or 4 months later, I change it. I can't think about the next book because I want to be constantly thinking about the one that I'm writing. I do get ideas and think, oh, that's really interesting. Someday I might write that, but it kind of just stays in the back of my mind. I don't make notes. I don't make a decision about what I'm going to do except as I need to for our scheduling. So I need to plan a couple books ahead, just like you.
Yeah, but I bet it helps that you got very up close and intimate knowledge of that schedule. So it's probably much more on your mind. So I wonder if that actually really helps for you to stay focused. No, I don't have a choice. I'm sure actually having Sandy there, you know, occasionally glaring at you might also help you stay focused.
I think, you know, it works for me just like for you, I think. Like you have a deadline, you know, when you need to turn your manuscript in. So I'll turn it around and send it back in your direction. When you have a deadline, how do you manage it? Do you write every day? Do you have a calendar that says I have to have this many books done by then?
I do write most days. I write first thing in the morning. Wake up very early while the house is still quiet, except for the animals, and write as much as I can before going to work. One of the ways I focus is I also don't tend to get distracted by lots of ideas. What I love about writing is immersing myself in one other world. So I don't want actually to get distracted. I want to immerse myself in that Kate and Andy world, or you know, in Halifax and Shadowboxer, for example. So yeah, I write every day. Most days I give myself a break because some days just aren't writing days. I try not to get too stressed out by the deadline. I like to leave myself lots of time to get feedback and lots of time for me to put it away and come back to it and edit it. I want to make it the very best that I can before I send off my first draft to my editor.
Okay. Here's one for you, which I wanted to ask too, which is how do you decide how much medical detail to add to your books without overwhelming the romance? I think it's a question that we all struggle with when we're writing anything that's not a simple, straightforward, I won't say simple, and I don't mean easy. I mean contemporary romance without a subplot. So how do you balance all of that information that you need to make it sound authentic and not overwhelm your story? Is it something you do consciously?
It is something I do consciously. I research consciously because I do not have any sort of medical background. I have an undergraduate degree in English literature and a master's degree in education. So I really know nothing about medical. What I'm interested in is always the characters. So I want the storyline to be plausible. It doesn't even actually have to be possible. My first book, Trigger, which is 50% off right now, flash sale, is about human bombs. So completely outside of anything that I truly understand. Technically, I want enough information for that to be plausible, for the tension to be there. But most of what I want to write about, regardless of the technical parts or the medical parts, is what's the character thinking about? How are they feeling about this? I want to know what Dr. Kate Morrison feels about her job. She doesn't love a lot of her job in the first 2 books. She's trying to figure out, you know, what she wants to do. She loves practicing medicine. She doesn't love practicing bureaucracy. So,
I read that line, you know, as a former physician, and I thought, boy, is that a perfect line. That was so good. It's like, yes, Kate, I got it.
Yeah, I mean, my father is a physician, and he's read all of my books, and he gave me some of that feedback. One of the reasons I wanted to read that scene I did from Pathogen is actually one of his favorite scenes is when Kate calls to get all of that, all of the donuts and stuff delivered to the ER, because he said that's what a good doctor would do, is take care of their nurses. It would take care of the people on the ground. That is a real medical moment, less so than actually looking at the technicalities of the medicine. That is a medical moment more than anything else.
Well, it was a very real moment. I mean, I thought it was great, and I really liked it. There's a couple questions coming down through the chat list too. One of them someone made a comment, thank you, that the villain that I had written, it rang true, and asked me about the research. And I mostly create character who don't think the way I think by reading things from people who think differently than I think. And it's not really very hard in today's world, if you read anything at all, to read what other people are thinking and feeling about circumstances in our world today, unfortunately or fortunately, however the case may be. And I think the thing that you need to do, which is sometimes hard for me, is to write outside your comfort zone. I mean, to write characters that you know are going to give readers the oogies. You know, that character gives me the oogies, but if you don't create the character realistically, they won't be a realistic villain. They won't be someone that the reader is going to actually have some negative feelings about, or perhaps also on some level understand, even if it's an understanding that's not comfortable. So thank you for that comment and for the question.
Yeah. Yeah, that connection came through. Someone asked about a criminal aspect and how do you write that? But I think you just answered that question as well. It's got to be about the connection really to who the character is, not necessarily your mindset.
No, exactly. Everyone is asking about next books, so we should probably comment on that. Are you going to write any more Kate and Andy?
Not as far as I know. I think about them all the time. I write about them in my head, but I think their storyline was pretty happily and well wrapped up. How about you, Red?
Every time I finish an honor book, I swear I'm never writing another one. And that's been going on for 20 years.
Yeah.
They're really hard to write. I'm really tired when I get done. This one was, I don't know, whatever came over me. I decided I would write basically 3 intersecting worlds with the Justice series, a little bit of Trauma Alert, and the Honor series all rolled up together.
It was
and
epic.
I really enjoyed it, and I had a good time, but they are really hard. I suspect there will be another honor book at some point because there's still quite a lot of story left. I think you really touched on it, though. I mean, it takes a brave author who has a popular series to say there's no more story. And I think that it's something that when my publisher hat is on, I talk about quite a lot because we get comfortable with our characters and we know that readers like our characters, maybe love our characters, but sometimes we've told all the story and there isn't enough left to make a good book because a book is different than just loving your characters. There has to be something happening in that story that challenges them and changes them. So I am writing, I am writing one in the Provincetown Tales for November. And I changed my mind last week completely about the blurb because of what's happening now. This is the second time this has happened to me. And this is an answer to another question. I'm going to speak really quickly so you can answer it also, which is, are the things that are happening in the world today changing what we're going to write? The last time this happened, I wrote Dangerous Waters when the hurricanes hit Texas. And I was so engrossed in the news that I decided I changed my mind. I wrote Dangerous Waters. I'm going to write Treacherous Seas, which will take place in Provincetown. But the inciting incident is going to be a cruise ship that pulls into the harbor with several people on board with a mysterious illness.
Oh, you just made people very happy, I think.
So how about you? What's up for you next?
I don't know. Right now I'm focusing on Stormlines coming out. That takes place in Hamilton, Ontario. And I'm back to some of my roots with cop and psychologist who supports health workers, actually frontline workers in an ER. And they're trying to help a 8-year-old kid who got caught up in her father's drug ring. So getting that one out for July, and then just, I don't know. I'm not sure how what's happening currently will affect my writing. I think none of us are really going to know until we look back and know how what's happening right now is going to affect us. But I'm sure, as most things do, I process a lot through my writing. I'm sure a lot of what's happening, even if not directly, is going to show up in my writing.
Hi guys, I'm jumping in to take you off.
No, thank you all for coming. We had a great time. Thank you, Jessica. You were great.
Thanks, Red. Thank you everyone for showing up. It was great to see you all.
See you all for the next panel, Finding Forever.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.